my light. You're shining here, my distant light. A star, a beacon, or a candle, you're shining bright. And even from afar, you're the only light that I can handle. You're here for me, concealed from other eyes by subtle veil of a perspective. You're within me, and let thy light be mine, by peaceful grace as thine objective. So this is my sculpture. The poem is called Together. It's the painting that goes with it. My beloved had asked me, what is the love of your life? I could have said you, I could have said myself, I could have said God. But I did not say anything. Instead, I have asked, what is yours? There was no reply either. We spent all day together. In the evening, it was time to return. As we turned to each other, there was no question. We were home all the time, together with everything, regardless of our views. Spiral, enclosed by the bulky bark the tree stem raises in a dizzy realm, each year further from its birth. Thus we, entwined by our lives, are branching out furthermore. It's harder to look back inside as season after season strides. But only clarity is wholeness, and only unity is age. Some watery, some strong, some in-betweeners wandering wherever they belong. Aroma, color, hot or iced, make composition map. But you're the listener of these lines. You are the perfect cup.
The quotation of the poem is from the Bible. Dry your tears, Rachel, and your work shall be rewarded. Like this I love, and no way other. Like this I love, without the chains. Like this I love, no need to bother, and you can even keep the change. Like this I love. The milk is bursting, the baby's crying, sticky hand, for vital essence, always thirsty. Like this I love, with no command. Like this I love, not counting chances, without credit debit lines, when millions I exchanged in glances. You must have loved like that, for once. The first one. Probably it ended. The nerves were stretching, wounds were slashed, your mind went blank, and you surrendered to mighty power of love. Like this I love. The buttons are flying, the past and present melt in one. Like this I love, without the crying. For God would notice me this time. Complete, surrounded by it, enveloped in one, and having all inside. Sensations too intense that feelings are unable to explain the rush that's in my blood, to see it all at once. The mystery that's taking place right now, and all this time in front of naked eye, and I can see, and I can be myself, without fear to become the other, because the other is inside as one, and there is nothing outside the other. The next one is a more lyrical poem called Memories on Columbus Circle. When we're finally near each other, you're not taking down my pants, but you're inside my ear, holding my hair, hiding your hands under my kneecap, It feels like being bundled by a big teddy bear, drinking straight up a big shot of vodka, taking the leap, holding your breath into Ohev. This is what love sounds like in Hebrew. An exhale of relief, shredding of fear, melting into your touch like a baby latched onto a mother's breast, ready to nest, letting go of the pain, willingly knowing soon there'll be time for restraint, and it will be so difficult to maintain this vibration. But ladies and gentlemen, after very careful consideration, please hear me saying, it's been said, but I'll say it again. We are here in training. We are all in training, learning to dance through the rain. To Moscow, the city where I grew up. Moscow, what a refuge. Hustler is your house. Russia is so huge. We come to you in crowds. We come to hear your bells ringing on Kremlin towers. Here we shall confess all our sins and troubles. Prisoner will be saved. Sick man will find his cure. Moscow, you are my fate, even if fate is cruel. Leaving my childhood nest, memories float around. Moscow, I kiss your breast, city of bells and sounds. And the last one I'm going to present tonight is actually translated by a friend of mine. I wrote it in Russian, and it's a translation. How I love that aroma, the aroma of lilacs, that grow wild in the shade of my old Moscow home, that intoxicate me with a bristle of springtime and a timid first vision of my childhood poems. How I love that aroma of sun and white dresses. I grow wild and breathe easy with sun at my back. I buy daffodils from everybody who passes, and I pass out a flower to each stranger in black. How I love that aroma of the poplar-lined boulevard, where the oak tree 200 years old was my friend, where I learned that all roads in this city lead homeward, and that all those aromas become me in the end. How I love that aroma of bright teenage chatter, the aroma of crushes and friends till the end. If you don't understand, then it doesn't matter. Let us say it was nothing, or let us pretend. Thank you so much.
Road right and rended matter mated, the end of time would rhyme with all that climbs drunk and elated, were the gnatted nest of noise and winded music married, the offspring of chaos would offer poise to all who stagger and are harried. But till such time as there's no more fight, or our end has left us laying on that blurry bed of cloud, I'll goddamn well continue saying, the crooked road is right, and drunk sodded passions should still be allowed to celebrate breathing by reading poetry out loud. It's called A Sky Stretching Luxurious with Marina. Marina's lover has gone to Rome, leaving Marina to roam alone, a bud about to burst in the garden of our villaggio here in the north. drinking at the cafe in Piazza Centro. Tonight, leaning back in my chair, a sky stretching luxurious with Marina, drunk with stars as much as absinthe, as much as the opportunity born by her man's absence. What's a poet to do? With my flawed Italian, do I dare open the rusted door of my mouth and speak to dear Carina Marina? Tonight I've asked the sky, cobblestone and piazzas, all that might conspire to help me acquire the one night with Cara Marina I desire. Of course, it's not my style to go after another man's girl, but here we are speaking of a world where I find I've no words to talk, a world dictated by young Marina's legs as she walks, a world whose only sotto voce heard, lilting in a whisper that makes me hard, belongs to her. Marina's beauty in an empty strada finds me standing from my seat, leaving the cafe in Piazza Centro, following her steps, losing my grip as Marina looks over her shoulder with a smile from her full lips. Just the goddamn encouragement I need. Call me shallow. Say my head is hollow. Say no poem of substance will come of such a nocturnal diversion. Let no lines in my mind arrive to render how this brown-eyed girl here, like a sign warning curves ahead, makes me surrender, having polished off a bottle with my foot pressing the throttle of my appetite to the goddamn floor. Fuck it, just to finish the war with this thing called poetry. I'll wave the white flag of a blank page. Who cares why these pages were born? This drivel waiting for a match to burn. Let my syllables be sore, words weak, my language's muscles torn, unable to lift a decent poem to the page in this dimly lit strata. Now walking arms linked with Marina. All that matters is the night ahead. This next poem brings us back to New York, in fact, specifically to JFK Airport. I really have to say, I had some input on the idea, the original thought from a dear friend, Stephen. It's called Movie Mix-Up at JFK Airport. A woman finds herself standing face to face with a man she did not at all expect to see in the crowd of travelers at this exact moment or location, the international arrivals terminal at JFK, the exit ramp, the place where they stop, stare at each other, but do not speak. While other travelers rush after their workaday life, this moment is maybe just a speck as the woman and man are suspended, looking for what's left in each other's tired eyes. But there are different movies playing in their heads of their years together. And no matter how hard they stare, search for some shared remnant in each other's irises, pupils, their separate movies continue to unwind in their heads, leaving them both stuck in the same but distinct theater, watching their own internal cinema projection of two alternate films on the big screen of their lives. This is how an airport terminal becomes a blur of too many different movies flickering, too much salt on the popcorn, too many misleading previews, too many suitcases on wheels, too many voices on cell phones after landing, all in the mad rush to move across this place the world calls America. This is called Song of an American Generation. With drug-fueled dreams and torn and faded jeans, swearing off suits and ties, swearing off the lure of the almighty buck, swearing how we'd never grow old or give a fuck about such garbage as two-car garages, we were going to be different. Dancing, deliciously drunk down dimly lit streets and dimly lit loves, we still somehow managed to stand against the war in Vietnam and believed in King's dream when peace and equality was seen as just around the corner. We were going to change the world. Later, with bloodshot eyes and dilated pupils, we stayed awake for endless days, debated inspired theories of nonsense in an acid haze, skinny dipped in lakes of wild ideas, street naked in streets paved with fears, paved slick and glistening wet with ecstatic tears, still determined to be different. But now, it's another century, the age of another generation's lust, and those of us who are not entirely lost, who can still hear our youth like an old song played with a dusty needle, tracking along the static of our past on vinyl. We are finding the song of our generation fading, both the melody and lyrics receding. Yet last night, eating a late dinner in a crowded West Side cafe, I saw a white-haired couple groping on the sidewalk on Broadway. The old lady was rubbing her arthritic paw up and down the crotch of the old man's corduroys while he was busy in her sweater. All this in front of the crowded cafe. As people walked by the amorous couple, most pretended not to notice, as we New Yorkers tend to, but others were laughing, snickering. As for myself, I wasn't sure how to respond, but then I realized I admired them, these two white-haired, romantic remnants of a once promising generation. For this may be exactly where we end up, despite the loftiest ambitions and invincible experiments of our youth, white-haired and groping in the dark on the crowded sidewalk of life, ignored or ridiculed, but, if we are lucky, still able to hold a loved one close. Well, I'll just read it. It's a line forever twisting north. Before I'm old enough to be left alone, after my parents go to work, by morning's first light, I watch my Zadie pouring vodka into his orange juice. He scratches his beard, winks at me, downs the drink, wipes his lip with his bathrobe sleeve, and I want to talk about Mickey Mantle, but Zadie's talking about the old country. Years before the Nazis, there was the Tsar, what sent my oldest brother to Siberia, and my mother, Oliver Sholem, your great-grandmother, who never complained to nobody, wanted to visit him. Only in them days there was no train what went so far north. Yeah, so what'd she do, Zadie? Well, she says how, without her firstborn son, she's like a Shabbos candle with no wick. Then she left. For a moment, I imagine a long walk, a wilderness of snow, a forest of ice, a line forever twisting north. So what'd you do, Zadie? Me? My grandfather chokes the neck of the vodka bottle. In the words of Delmore Schwartz, I come to America to be a czar myself. And the display of hunger so apparent in their eyes, as if they'd half a mind to devour a plate of burnt poet next. In that moment, I lost my appetite, stood, shrugged, headed for the door, and moved on. The title poem of my next book, which will be coming out next year, which is called Another Night in a Rented Room. Another night, stoned, on the floor by the fire, giving in completely to desire, polishing off a bottle the way champions of pleasure drink, when the want defeats whatever the hell others think and takes over in both of us. Another night blessed by the burning in both of us, in the furnace beneath skin, fueled by the needful thing we share, washed up on the shore, line of life's tangled sheets and linen. Like abstractions or some magic spell, the stuff that turns keys and opens a cell. Like most things minus a boundary. Most things embracing uncertainty. We've a reward as much in our searching as in our finding how an answer can dwell in what others sell, short and dismiss as just any sort of night. Let others offer their brilliant complaint. Say this poem is old school, quaint. Let such critical puppies chasing their tails faint, or scratching fleas behind their ears be left to whimper for years. As for you and me, your whispers only toss kindling, add to the burning trope of a flame-lit night as our bodies grope, with no need to cope with walking wounded, penned in a barbed wire world. As for you and me tonight, the world is this rented room. This poem, I'm going to really ask your indulgence because we're going to relocate to the year 1946. This is called Homage to Golda, 1946. A cough after a wet cigarette is all Golda can offer the doctor when he stops speaking, tugs on his beard, and steps toward her. "Did you hear me?" he asks. No reply. She hugs her bag, feels ill. Here's where Sister Esther is locked up. The diagnosis, schizophrenia, does not translate into Yiddish. Here the doors are bolted. My grandmother's looked for an exit past the shuffling, bathrobed shoulders. Sivia, her cousin, is somewhere in Palestine. She'd lost it when they started to empty the ghetto, robbed by the Poles who'd promised to sell guns. She got some from others anyway. In Warsaw at 16, Sivia lost it, then killed Nazis, killed more Nazis, then escaped through the sewers, made her way to the promised land, killed British soldiers. Did you hear me? Do you understand what I just said? Golda doesn't hear the doctor, just hugs her bag tighter. What else? Half-sisters in Argentina, Sister Sarah in Brooklyn, useless in a haze, spending winters swimming off Coney Island. So Golda turns, asks, as if the doctor is in the hall, on a horse, high in the saddle, waving a saber. You're Cossack? But the doctor doesn't understand her Russian, just tilts his head, stares at her. And my grandmother knows that look. This is called Maybe There's Too Much Manhattan. Maybe there's too much Manhattan. Here is where I started and always return. More than London, here the city spills over the lip of each glass I drink from, over the slate bar of each dive where centuries hide and come alive. Of course, there's too much Manhattan. It floods the boathouse in the park and agitates the currents of the Hudson. Here, even more than Rome, is the most resilient town on the globe. Here, around the clock, the reach of inconsistent architecture defines in its varying lines the brittle logic of history as injury. Yes, it's Manhattan, not Paris, that truly delivers lectures in traffic, writes and rehearses plays on buses, and composes symphonies of secrets to be performed on steel subways, spilling from the Lincoln Center's fountain, spilling over the Bethesda in the park. It makes streets and avenues slippery. Here, horses bolt from carriages lined up in front of the plaza. Yes, of course, there's too much Manhattan for one island. Yet, here is where I can write and say fuck cash. And even if most of my poems are trash, syllables that merely scratch and thrash across a page, here is where my bantering verses first started to swim fast, and my metric feet, perhaps even years from now, might still be kicking, leaving their own slight splash. I had this idea years ago of what I like to call disposable art, disposable poetry specifically. It would be something I'd write a draft, and this would be just one draft for one night, for one event, and it was disposable poems. Different for any given reading. And so I've decided to offer as my finale for you just such a piece tonight. This is called The Oath. I swore I wouldn't think of you. I resolved not to speak of you, not to scribble another whimpering poem about you that I'd only have to destroy. But now your name is uttered in the same breath as this clown, some lame puppy artist you've trained who I saw today downtown. What drugs does he fancy with his frown? Still, I swore. I took an oath. How I'd forget the times we thought blessed. Forget the feel of your lips on my chest. Forget your scent after sex. So have you taught your artist how to fetch? Screw all oaths, call me a wretch. It seems my oath resists growth and cannot be etched in stone, but offers only a smudged charcoal sketch, a rough drawing of me without you. But whatever this is, it's certainly more rubbish I won't publish. It's still more drivel about you that once read must be destroyed, torn into goddamn shreds.
The actual event was no longer of any interest. A destiny exquisitely, exquisitely thought through has folded into a life. So much for the fluctuating approximations of intelligent power, purposeful sky. He tested his strength in the essential instances when life and image flap their joint wings. Earth to him was a belligerent sphere that spews forth on occasion almost perfectly rounded words. Yet it no longer mattered what he concocted the night before, what sonnet of leaves or loss. In a window he shifted his angle of vision onto a cloud that shifted its angle of flight. He thought, nothing sad in the death of contemporaries. They shift their angle of life into their thorough work, that he too was but a shifting reflection, not as a stone or grass, no, so much less real than they. This was an island of thought in an ocean of selfsame melancholy. Disguised as a graceless chrysalis, it proceeded to unfold its wings. Look at it, seize it, shut it into your cage of ecstasies, the happiness unforeseen, the most singular secret of all. If I'm a fruit of oblivion, then are you my memory's tree? If I flap my wings of a soul, then do you flap yours of a mind? If I'm a pebble of a time river, then are you a rock of time? If you are my memory's tree, then watch that I don't fall. So I guess it's kind of a love poem, even though it's not exactly. And this one is about, well, not really about Helen of Troy, but it uses Helen of Troy as a metaphor for other things. But it's, I mean, on the surface it's about Helen of Troy. And it's called Shadow Over the Town. Helen's shadow on Trojan rocks still threatens the Greeks, burdens them with the highest taxes the loved exacts from the lover. Middle-class tea shop warmth forsaken, adding machines count the killed. A scarce spring, a fruitless autumn, quiet markets and barren cribs. See the wretched pass for the mad for the licentious, shadows creeping after the main shadow over the town. The cruel nudity of the woman washed clean of mercy, memory of the guilt reflecting future centuries' blood. From my book of first book of poems, which was published in Moscow a long time ago, actually. It's mostly Russian poems, but there are some English poems. While I was sitting in the back, I was choosing poems and using bits of paper towel as bookmarks. Okay, here. Watch out for, this one, it's like a trilogy of very short poems, and the trilogy is called Rock, but they're very short. Watch out for every face, not pinned down by pity to a cold, glazed rock in sleep. Watch it squirm in a slow rapture as it spreads its wings over sprawling, slowly waking prey, the rays of so many nights forming a focused light formed of substance, hearts raise can accept, while their long shuddering patience, shoulders, rocks, sleep. That was the first short one. And here's the second one. Go after every face, touch it slow, slow embrace, for the world has made touch whole. Here no kindness comes amiss. Here fate waves leaves as caress, and substance of a kiss cures. How these stones melt up to breath, boulders clinging water, touch cures faces of misshaped words, watch its tendrils sway sound. And the last very short poem of that little cycle. Look inside the face, traced with the world's moist stone, into the icon of every kindness, gentle bones and 100 glories could neither imitate nor efface. See the white mingle with gold, the gold with dusty tracings, the foundation become weathered red, and the stone remain alone, a salvaged monument to the faith, shared by men delighting in stones saraband to time. Okay, here's another short, very short poem. And in some of these poems, I do away with articles, because in Russian, we don't use the and a. And I know in English you have to, and I use them in English. But in some of these poems, I get rid of them. So they're a little Russian in that way. Stone words hard to wield, smooth as the moon washed of night, shape me into a weapon no one can see except with the eyes of his bones. Words tight as skin in a fleshless space, worn thin in a cage of promise. Design fast the leap into air. No man can follow, see, or stop with the scared silk of the nightly kisses or daily prayers in his expectant hand. Here's another very short one. Naked leaves sifted nightly, gathered, fondled, and stored in long sheets of black fire, nailed firm to stars, free of feelings clatter, freed most of all from the earth, whose fingertips touched fire, arms steeped in the sickness of its craving. Earth's love is persistence, rust, time spread over wide pastures. Weeds perpetuate the difficult love. Earth over leaf, thuds of jealousy, black over shapeless earth. Sorry, I didn't pronounce shapeless right. Black over the shapeless earth. Watch the bristling hills hide in the unseen shape of clouds, narrowing body, restrained by nothing save the sky, night after night, bent on self-preservation, substance scattered in twisted air. Watch the wrung clouds stagger down to where sands drift, seas hum, rocks huddle, where, entangled in sterile crags, air reclaims its pride. Sycamore and oak toss skinned branches, leaves trimmed to size, nerves cropped tight, while snow lasts and sleeps in earth's sunk flank, lulls earth's wanderings into the ancient calm, dimmed, blotched beyond a possible muffled cry, leaving with nothing but be still, sleep in this chill, healed. This is just an anthology of 20th century, well, because this was published on the brink of the 20th and 21st century. So 20th century poems on Greek myths. And apparently it looks like many, many poets in every culture, in every language, in French, in Italian, in German, in Russian, in English, in Chinese even in Hindi, wrote poems on Greek myths. So there were too many poems to choose from, but I only chose the ones that offer a new interpretation of a myth. You know, where a Greek god or hero or heroine don't just appear for a second and disappear, but they offer a new vision of a myth. So I'll read. I want to read one of my Tsvetaeva translations. I translated a lot of Tsvetaeva, Marina Tsvetaeva, Russian poet, and I'll read just one of them. It's called Praise to Aphrodite. In Russian, it's Chvala Aphrodite, and there's a whole cycle of them, and this is just one of them. How many feed off your hands, white doves and great doves, entire kingdoms coo and dance round your lips, baseness. Still the deadly sweat overflows your golden bowl. Even the crested warrior clings like a white she-dove. On an evil day each cloud grows as round as breasts. Every innocent flower bears your face, temptress. Mortal white water, salt of the sea, in white water and torture, how long are we to heed your call, O armless sculpture? Okay, now I'll read. This is Marina Tsvetaeva translation. She recalled the fear that had overwhelmed her soul. Something had seized her throat so she couldn't cry out to them. White birds, wild, light, drifting in the sky which had turned the most remote black. White birds in black sky, white scream in her throat, hair splashing the shoulders chased by the awesome bird, hung in lulled air like an ancestor's soul, heavy, languid, and waiting for an infusion of flesh, another fit of forgetfulness, heaving, not hiding her, like a mirror refusing a look at herself from behind her startled shoulder, the familiar landscape fleeing from her cry for help. Perhaps at the behest of a god with his sad immortality, knowing the images to be thus seized and begotten from the shivering flesh, wild birds flying, no words healing, white and fleeting, up in the lightened sky. She recalled that alone, she of all women, she, the mother of the nation of myth makers, the generation of myth transforming itself into memory, man of fire taking her moistened lips, his voice chasing her has become her children's, light, gentler than her memory, still not in her full command, lighter with gentler movements, more tact, less mythology, the singing without the myth within. In the time allotted for myth making, her children singing in the space allotted for healing music, sounds that she remembered as the very same. One last time they have seized her throat, wild black birds flying. And